In this video, I'm going to discuss the concept of floating shares. When you're dividing up the residue in the program, you're going to be using percentages. And that's just because that's how clients typically think about dividing up the residue. I want to leave 25% to this person and 30% to this person, for example. So let's say the client came to you and said, I want to leave this a third, a third, a third to three different people. So in the program, we're going to create segments of 33.3%. So let's start by doing segment 1 for 33.3, and then we'll add our first gift to John. Then we'll go to the second segment, same thing. We're going to change this to 33.3, and then we'll add our second beneficiary. Now when we get to the third one, it's telling us that 33.4% is remaining, because in order to actually add up to 100%, you would need that extra 0.1%. But because of the floating shares concept, we don't need to worry about this 0.1% because technically we're not worried about adding up to 100% because we're not using percentages in the will strictly for this purpose. So instead, we're just going to want to make sure we create another equal segment. So we're going to go for segment 3 for 33.3% because we don't want this segment 3 person to be getting more than the others. We want it to be an equal share. So then we'll go ahead and add the gift to the last beneficiary. And so because we're not worried about it adding exactly to 100%, we just want there to be 3 equal shares. Technically, you could even not worry about adding it to 100% at all. You could just create 5 segments of 1%, for example, and then in the will, it would create 5 different parts. And this is because of the floating shares concept. So that's just to say that there's only as many parts created as necessary. So if all of these 3 beneficiaries were alive when the client passed away, then all of these 3 portions would be created. So we would have our 100%. But if, let's say, John Collins isn't alive when the client passes away, then you're only going to need these 2 segments. So they're still going to be getting their 33.3 parts in the will, but instead of having this 33.3 out of 100%, the floating shares concept is going to divide it pro rata among the others. So they'll then be getting their 33.3 out of 66.6 instead of out of 100. And so it's just divided based on whoever is alive at the time of death. And that's how the floating shares concept works.